When the Russians invaded Ukraine again in 2022, many new regiments were formed to resist the invasion. One of these new regiments, that has exploded into the headlines through harsh combat, is the main Directorate of Intelligence's Sabotage and Reconnaissance Unit, Kraken. Kraken formed as Russian troops in armor advanced on the eastern Ukrainian city of Kharkiv during the first few days of the war. It was made up of many local football ultras, veterans of the Azov Brigade, recon officers, and other veterans from the last 8 years of fighting in the Donbass. They not only succeeded in halting the Russian columns trying to capture the city, but also in pushing them out of it. They then would take part in an operation that would smash Russia's aura of invincibility for good, proving that the battle for Kiev was not a fluke and Ukraine could go on the offensive. The Ukrainians, including Kraken, launched a surprise counteroffensive in Kharkiv. The Russian line, stretched thin with many troops committed elsewhere in the country, broke. The Ukrainian army advanced rapidly, taking advantage of the break in the Russian line. They quickly liberated over 500 settlements in just over 3 weeks, pushing the Russian army almost entirely out of the Kharkiv region. While this Ukrainian victory fell somewhat out of the headlines rather quickly, as attention refocused south towards the Kherson counteroffensive, its impact cannot be understated. It was so startling to Moscow that it pushed Putin's regime to enact mobilization. I wanted to get a better understanding of both Kraken and this pivotal moment in the war that shook the Russians. So I went to the eastern Ukrainian city of Kharkiv to talk to a Kraken commander named Rostyslav, who fought and commanded soldiers on the front line of the Kharkiv counteroffensive firsthand, helping to recapture many villages and even the city and logistical center of Kupyansk.
I'm Dylan Burns, and this is Ukraine Uncensored.
So I'd like to start with him introducing himself, saying his name, where he's from in Ukraine, and what he was doing before the war.
My name is Rostyslav. I'm currently the Sergeant Major of one of the stormtroopers units. And before the war, I was a sales manager, overseeing the factory sales in Ternopil. I was born in Ternopil, western Ukraine.
Kharkiv is dominated by Kraken, and Kraken is dominated by people from Kharkiv. As somebody from western Ukraine, why did you join Kraken?
We all have had different paths that led us to Kraken in particular. But firstly, we don't make the difference between people, whether they are from Ternopil or Kharkiv. All of it is one Ukraine for us. Returning to the first part of the question, why Kharkiv in particular? Fate brought me to Kharkiv and the history of previous battles. We were in Kramatorsk prior, and in Kiev. But eventually, the service led to Kharkiv.
Was his first group that he joined, military-wise, Kraken, or was there other groups he joined first?
A different group at first. The story goes like this. I came to the recruitment center without any surviving in the army experience. There were some difficulties, because so many were willing to enlist. All over Ukraine, not just in Ternopil. So I was given the number 460 in a waiting line. They promised to call me, but I did not want to wait any longer. So I went to Kiev on my own, because there was fighting near Kiev back then. So I figured I could apply myself there, and it turned out to be true. I enlisted in Kiev.
What group did he join when he enlisted in Kiev?
I will not name the subdivision. It's another group that is still active today, from the same department as Kraken. I was moving from one subdivision to another several times.
Was there anything in particular about Kraken that drew you towards them to join their ranks?
The spirit. We were attached to them, Kraken, in Kramatorsk. And in them, we saw what we wanted from our subdivision. Diogenes has the same history. Our whole group, working in Kramatorsk, decided to transfer to Kraken together. Work. Effective work. The effectiveness was lacking in the previous group. It counted as military service, sure, But we felt like we could do so much more, and effectively too.
So you'd say that the effectiveness of Kraken...
Yeah, and the spirit, like the dedication, things like that.
Spirit.
Yeah.
How would you describe the spirit of Kraken?
Hard to answer. You can say so many things. Spirit of Kraken.
Щось таке, що його виділяє.
Це підрозділ, який
The Kraken regiment gets things done and fights for victory no matter what.
тільки там
It gets things done no matter what, whether it gets aid or not,
не допомагають, є підтримка,
whether there is support from the government or not.
чи соціальна, чи немає підтримки. От вони
They have a goal, and whatever happens, they will fight for independence.
Вони все одно будуть боротися за
They fought for Kharkiv when it was so difficult and nobody helped.
в Харкові було дуже складно, і їм ніхто не допомагав.
It's because their like central focus is fighting
Yes,
and winning
that's
the
it,
war.
yeah. Mhm.
Gotcha. So you wouldn't say that the organization bothers itself much with bureaucracy or, politics. It's only focused on winning the war as quickly as possible.
Так.
Yes. Kraken has united people.
Кракен, він об'єднав людей.
At first, this was a small group of people with almost identical views, such as ultras, for example.
І так далі, але
But afterward, their motto and general spirit was,
такий дух і такі свої
it
позиції.
doesn't matter who you were in your civilian life.
Ким ти був в мирному житті, неважливо.
It doesn't matter what your views are about, anything other than the independence of Ukraine.
Незалежності України і так далі.
We are together in this, that's all.
Would you say that change from Kraken to what it is now, early days to now, how has the organization changed as it has grown and it has gone from a lot of football ultras, I heard about like a lot of bodyguards, stuff like that, to the much larger organization it is now?
The change will and motivation remain the same,
Дуже велика мотивація і бажання, але
but we realized in time,
вчасно зрозуміли.
I know plenty of divisions with a great will to do things.
Далі це не пішло.
That's all there is to it.
Бажання і
But what I like about Kraken is that they began to evolve professionally. They really became professional military, and there was a lot of attention, effort, and means allocated to the development of people within Kraken itself,
людей в Кракені, розвиток
helping people grow to the officer level.
Тобто, так, ніхто навіть
Our ranks might be the lowest sergeants.
ми по званнях,
We can occupy officers' positions.
молодший або рядовий, або молодший сержантський склад, але
So,
посади
our skills are being developed.
в нас
Skills such as
вміння
knowing how to
воювати,
fight,
вміння
how to preserve our
людей,
people,
вміння
and how to be more lethal and effective. And that's how Kraken changed and
в цьому
developed.
плані розвивається Кракен.
So you would say that the change has been mostly positive.
I think so, yes.
Has there been anything that has changed as the organization has grown that is regrettable? Say, like, I heard from some people that are part of groups that have started as football ultras, from those ultras, that, the values of the organization have changed, that they've become too lenient towards, like, new members not believing the, like, nationalist beliefs that they believe. Is that the case at all?
Дивіться, Кракен.
Well, Kraken has not abandoned its nationalist angle. We, possibly, have different views compared to other nationalist groups.
Організаціями.
But what essentially separates Kraken from a professional regular army is its unquestionable motivation.
Це те, що є безперечна мотивація,
Truly.
реально. І
And Kraken's success, and I believe it's successful,
має успіх.
shows that some things matter more than others.
Є речі першочергові, є речі другочергові.
Motivation comes first, and if it's there, then professionalism can be learned and perfected. But if there is no unquestionable, strong motivation, then no professionalism makes up for it, and effectiveness suffers.
Переходить в таку ефективність.
And you cannot say that Kraken does not stick to its principles.
Що, в принципі, Кракен все одно залишається так, можливо, більше
We are more moderate now.
але
But we are people prepared to disobey something if it hinders our effectiveness.
готові заради ефективності навіть там не підпорядковуватися якимось речам, які можуть зашкодити.
For example, Regular army personnel does not mesh well with us because they do everything by the book. We put the effectiveness first. We are pro the changes in the army that lead to higher effectiveness and less bureaucracy. Formality is not for us. Thus, the spirit of ultras and nationalism remains.
So he would say that the nationalism and the ideology helps them?
Probably the time to point out that not everyone interprets the word nationalism correctly.
Це ми знаємо таке.
Тут, можливо, більше
Probably it will make more sense to call it patriotism, or extreme patriotism, or moderate civic nationalism.
How would he describe, I know many people have different types of nationalism, but how would he describe Kraken's nationalism to somebody who's completely unfamiliar?
Do you mean how Kraken's brand of nationalism differs from the rest?
Націоналізм Кракена, ви маєте на увазі.
Як ви б характеризували націоналізм, який ви бачите в Кракені?
Це
It is the limitless love of your land, wherever you were born. It's being unwilling to compromise in matters concerning the state and sovereignty.
Держави і державності.
And being prepared to do anything and give everything for that idea.
Дати все, покласти все на цю ідею.
Talking is one thing, but here, people are prepared to act on it, with no excuses. There were plenty of situations when there were no resources to do something, and yet we managed. Sometimes we take resources from the enemy and such, but we did what we had to do. I would also like to add this. Something specific to Kraken is what its origin story gave to it, them being originally ultras. All those things we talked about apply to most people fighting currently.
В переважній більшості зараз тих, хто воює.
And our charm in particular is strong reactivity to the threats that endanger the country's safety.
Такі загрози, які суперечать там безпеці країни і так далі, реагуємо дуже гостро.
We are not playing around. We react fast and decisive.
Швидко і гостро.
Some would say we are like hooligans. It's not clear what's what, but we are already reacting. But in this current war, it's useful. Reacting fast without doubt and disputes. At least in wartime, this is justified.
So I would say, I'm trying to make sure that I get a good read out of this. From how you're describing it, it sounds like Kraken are more of like maybe the ideological diehards. We're going to reunite Ukraine, no matter what equipment you give us. We're going to be as blunt about it as possible. We're maybe not like in a suit like a bureaucrat, but we're, because of our background, because of our ideology, we're willing to do what the job is, no matter how hard it is. Kind of, that's the picture, vaguely.
Yes, yes. If we are not given the means to do that, we take them ourselves. That's why we... I understand that if this war, God forbid, goes from an active phase to some latent prolonged thing or after the victory, we will not be needed, because our methods will not be welcomed by society. But here and now, we are effective, and we understand this too. We are not a forever thing.
So he's saying that if it freezes, like let's say the contact line freezes, or if the war ends, they win.
Yeah.
Does he think there's a future for Kraken in that area, or is it like Kraken's no longer needed?
If we go back to what we talked about before, it's clear that Kraken will not tolerate freezing the conflict. We see our purpose here in winning this war, not freezing it.
Саме в тому, щоб перемогти в цій війні, а не заморозити.
Because no compromise is possible.
Він неможливий. Звичайно,
And Kraken will stand against those on our side who decide to freeze the conflict.
з нашого боку вирішив заморозити цей конфлікт.
But that will be another story.
Вже зовсім інша історія.
There are some people running in the American political scene who think that Ukraine should give up some land, give up, say, Crimea, Donetsk, Luhansk, and they even say that, maybe the Ukrainians should just freeze the contact line who are running for office right now. If any of those candidates were to win and they started pressuring the Ukrainian government to do that, what would Kraken's position be, and what would they do if the government possibly looked like they were going to cave on such a demand?
I think that the first question depends on the other, because it's not just Kraken who will disagree with that. Many divisions will not agree, whether they are volunteer battalions or Ukrainian armed forces formations. The government, I believe, will have to listen to us and not them. Yes, because of the vision of the people. Just think about it. If we give away Donbass and Crimea, firstly, let's highlight that the war did not start in 2022, but in 2014. And if this conflict, which we did not create, will end like this, it's us losing. We won in the 2022 campaign, if you can even call ruined cities and fates, not to mention killed people, victory. People use the numbers of people killed to manipulate. That's the reality. What have we won then? That's losing. And these are the questions we are going to ask anybody who... We will ask our government, how come? What was the point of anything then? There is no way. Many of our government's actions are dictated by the fact that military people will not agree. As for our foreign partners, we are, of course, very grateful to them. I don't know what we would do without them, but it's not even a question that we would have continued fighting with or without their support. We would fight regardless. The question would be how much means would we have to fight? That answers your question, what will Kraken do? We will fight. We would be searching for means to fight like partisans. That's the meaning of our lives. Of course. My condolences. As you know, they caused a lot of sorrow. Even so, there are some people who we would need to fight for their minds. Everywhere, really. You might be surprised, but you can find people like that in Vinnytsia and Ternopil, especially now with the internal displacement. Yeah, but that's another subject entirely. This fight is still ahead of us. But currently, we need to defend what is ours. I'll say more. If we go back to the beginning, are we fighting because our foreign partners are helping us? Or are they helping us because we are fighting? There is a difference. There is an answer to your question there. We are fighting, and we will continue to fight, whether there is help or not. But the efficiency of this fight depends on the support, as well as how long the fighting will be.
So in a scenario where like Trump got elected and he cut off all aid immediately, Kraken and others would still keep fighting no matter what.
Yeah, it's exactly what you said.
Of course.
Gotcha. I do want to ask about the Daddy Bandera sign. Was fading above you. Can I ask you, is that yours? Did you? Oh, I'll film it later.
Yeah.
Is that your picture?
No.
We ordered it. There is this very interesting artist in Lviv. She makes pop art pieces from classic paintings, makes them into posters. It's interesting. Many things you can see around here for fun. Humor really helps in military life, and we make fun of stereotypes about us more than anything. Good thing you did not see the poster on the closed doors. We have this fascist letter there saying, "Do not trespass. Germans live here." But we are not about that ideology at all. We are making fun of things some people think of us.
So they lean into it.
Yeah, like I do as well, you know. Same thing, yeah.
Well,
But I do say to Kharkiv people, you might not know it, but you are Banderites currently. Because back in those times, just as Hitler was our enemy, so was Stalin. Two enemies, tearing us apart.
Does he view it in a very similar way? Does he have a lot of respect for Stepan Bandera or a different faction of the UPA? Or
I have respect for Bandera. I can explain why. I was interested in this history. And if you learn about Bandera's history, Many things overlap with what is happening now, even going back to your question about losing support. Because what happened back then was this. We were fighting for independence from the Soviet Union, or rather, against the communist regime. Ukraine could not fight against that on its own. Just like now, Ukraine cannot fight against Russia on its own. That's why Bandera found support from the Germans. And Germans did not just give weapons, they also gave men. That's how he saw it. When he saw it was not the case, he started fighting against both. He had bravery, although it was clear it was a losing battle, and he did end up in a German concentration camp. It was clear that he was going to fail, but he decided to stand against both powers regardless, for the idea. And today, if this exact situation happened, all of us are saying Ukraine must be independent. That's a Banderite thing, and that's what Bandera wanted.
The UPA was an incredibly diverse organization. There were people who did collaborate with the Nazis, there were people who refused to collaborate with the Nazis. Of the ones who did collaborate, how are they viewed in Ukrainian society? How do you view people like that who did collaborate with the SS?
That's a question to study. If they collaborated only for a certain time, and for what reason? I don't want my words to be misconstrued. Just imagine this. Poland decided to help us now. Poland gives us its soldiers, boots on the ground. For example, because there is a deficit of people. So the Poles come, and we are fighting side by side. I'm not using Americans for this hypothetical on purpose, so nobody gets any ideas. I do love the Poles also, however. And then we, Kraken, fighting alongside some Polish division, understand they came with a different intent, that they came not to help us, but to take away Western Ukraine from us, which they actually did back in the day, and we start fighting against both. So you need to imagine yourself in that situation. We did not have Germans anywhere, but the Soviet army came to us in Western Ukraine in 1939. They were deporting whole villages to Siberia, killing, taking away property, raping. Horrid things were happening there. And then another power comes along that can get rid of all that, because they, Germans, made those promises at first, declaring Ukraine will be independent when we get rid of the Soviets. Later, it became clear that it was not going to happen, and they turned against the Germans, Bandera, and others got arrested, and UPA started fighting on both fronts. That's why I see them positively. These were people motivated by the independence of Ukraine. Sure, they were wrong and did not see they were being fooled, but we, currently, are also not immune to such mistakes. If we are going to talk about Volyn massacre, then we need to talk about pacification, Operation Vistula, and other things. Many complicated issues. A lot of manipulation there too. Just listen to what the Russian side is saying now about Mariupol. They say the Ukrainian army committed all of that, and people believe it. Volyn massacre can be used like that too. Undoubtedly, a villainy. We don't support this crime. Individuals and certain groups commit war crimes in all armies of the world. But were these things committed with an idea in mind? Was it for ideological purposes? Things like that can happen now. Soldiers can lose their sanity and commit such things. But that does not mean we support their acts.
So, as a surgeon in the military, what is your role? What are the type of jobs that you do? What's an average workday look like for you?
In short, I am doing the same things I did in my civilian life. As a civilian, I was building teams, and I was boosting people's faith in doing what they were doing. Yeah, I was building processes. Same here. What needs to happen and how the learning process needs to go. That's what sergeants do. There is a company commander who is dealing with the high-ups. Everything below that level is on sergeants. Work with personnel, the people. Their living conditions, what do they value, how do they train, how they talk amongst each other, their relationships with each other, and how they would go to battle. Because I also am the commander of the battalion, first sergeant. There are the Alpha group and Bravo group. I am the commander of the Bravo one. I have combined duties because there is a shortage of people who can lead. It's an important work because battles are one thing, but, like I said, I come from a business background. I have been managing people since 2003. I have the experience that has uses here, similar to negotiations. Sometimes the negotiation process is just the retelling of the negotiating positions prepared beforehand. Same with battles. Usually, the way the battle goes is just the result of who planned things better, who prepared their people better, who taught, supplied, and motivated them better. Motivation matters. So all of that, training, motivating, and so on, is done here by me.
What are the biggest difficulties of the job managing people in your current role, managing the people under your command?
The hardest part. Firstly, this is mentally demanding. The price of your mistake is very high. If you do something wrong, I'm speaking about losses, you know. Losing someone is very hard. Because if someone loses you, you will no longer care. Although the death toll in our case is very low, thankfully. We only lost one person, considering all the missions we accomplished. Yes, for all this time. Many were injured, but the lethal case was only one person, Nesolidar. Not just me, but the entire team. Though it is a pretty good result. But still, that one person, I feel emotional even now. Especially considering we took part in Kharkiv operations and went past the enemy lines in Seversk as scouts. Yes. So, we were in Balaklia. Before the Ukrainian armed forces were there, we were in Kupyansk on the 13th, although it was officially liberated on the 16th.
What is the difference between a good commander and a bad commander?
Важко сказати.
Hard to say. A lot of factors to consider.
Дуже багато факторів. Тут,
To be objective, only statistics show it objectively. If we talk about each commander subjectively, then opinions will vary. And which one is considered good or bad will be based on different arguments. But overall, it's statistics. Firstly, the level of preparedness of the division. Secondly, the motivation level. But really, it's about the commander's regard for the people. It's a skill too. How to explain this? Treating people right often turns to demagogy. Buying people's love is really easy. At a particular moment, the commander may seem subjectively bad to people, but then it comes to the actual battlefield later, and they see it differently. It happens often enough. Truthfully, it's more about respect. Basically, the good commander probably is. You see, I have not asked myself this question much. It's just like a good manager. A good commander is respected. People are afraid to let him down, but not afraid of him. It's easy to rule by fear in the army. Unlike in business, the army provides conditions for that. But even in the army, a good commander inspires people to follow him through thick and thin. If people trust in him, now that's a good commander. If a commander did not manage to get and deserve people's trust, then that's a sign of his quality right there.
So I wanted to ask a little bit more about command because I usually talk to foot soldiers a lot less than I talk to commanders. How do you garner the trust of someone so that they trust you with their life when you send them off into battle? That's an immense, burden on someone's shoulders and a hard thing to earn.
Let's see. In situations like these, it's a bit different from civilian life. It's like this phrase, misfortune shows those who are not really friends. But that misfortune needs to happen first, and then you can see who is a friend or who isn't. Same thing with trust. Something needs to happen to test it. But in these circumstances, something happens every day. Thus, there are plenty of opportunities for you to show yourself by actions, not words. People see what you do. And if you stand up for people and their interests, even against themselves sometimes, by making them do hard things, they can see it. They can see if you're working for their benefit or your own. It becomes clear because so many things happen that make it transparent. Every extreme situation reveals what's inside a person. It reveals what you wish to hide from others.
Not every commander is good. Some commanders are not of such a great quality. How does it affect a unit when a commander is either ruling by fear or he puts himself before the unit for a promotion? He doesn't care as much or he's not as skilled. How does that affect the unit? How much does it undermine their ability to get things done?
It's demotivating, definitely. Many people lose hope because of that. Commander's actions and character is crucial in war and day to day.
Тому що саме тут на війні треба, та і в побуті взагалі.
War is not just battles. Most of the time, it's preparation for battles. As I said before, the success of the battle depends on preparations before it starts. I believe that a lot depends on the commander. 80% of success depends on the commander. It's not one commander, but several. There are levels to the commanding stuff. It's not about personality cults. But each and every commander is important. Their ability to motivate especially, because many people, especially volunteers who are not career military people, came to a wholly new environment for them. Absolutely new. And who will confidently lead them and encourage them plays a huge role. Soldiers need to know what to do and be confident in themselves. Their effectiveness and how fast they can react to things depends on that. I am not talking just about battles. I am talking about learning, training, and mastering one's skills. Commander should not just motivate, but lead by example too. Commander needs to smooth the sharp edges that constantly pop up too. He needs to help the soldiers work through their personal issues as well. To do that, one conversation with them is often enough, or a couple of sentences even, so they can feel seen and cared for. No need to be excessively overbearing, however, that annoys people. Commander must see the difference between being an overbearing mummy to the soldiers and being there for them. That's important. Commanders need to do that on all levels of command. Commander of a small group of 5 people. Commander of the squad of 15 people. Commander of the company of 160 people. All of them, on their levels, need to see what is going on with their people, and each of their personalities has importance for a singular soldier. To elaborate on 80% of success, it's not dividing importance between the command and soldiers. It's about how much commanders and other circumstances, such as supply level, impact soldiers' performance. How efficient all of that is constitutes 80% of the success.
Is there at all a disconnect between command and what the average soldier experiences, or their what they have to deal with on the front line, their conditions? I know that some commanders are maybe not as willing to visit the front lines, see the conditions of the soldiers. Others are. How important is being connected to that?
If there is a disconnect, then that's not a commander. Then it's an overseer or a keeper, not the commander.
Yeah, he says it's like I don't know, like a guard dog that dictates what they should do, but it's not a commander. There shouldn't be like this disconnect.
The commander is in the same boat as the people.
The commander is with the people, there should be any disconnect.
He might not be physically present with the soldiers, but mentally he should be. They share goals, problems, and threats. The commander is on the same side as the people, not on the other side.
Yeah, so he says there's no like an other side where the commander is. He's on the side with the soldiers. Even if he's not physically present, let's say, right? The problems, the troubles, the hardships are shared. That's what you should do. If there's a disconnect like that, then it's not a good commander.
Because there is a level of command where you go with your people in battle physically. And there are commanders in the headquarters who oversee the battle and respond to soldiers' needs.
Yeah, so basically he says that certain commanders, for example, go with their troops directly to the front lines, to the battle, yeah? And there are commanders who are in the quarters, basically, like, you know, in the, like a commanding center, sitting there and directing like everything, and they basically still do the same exact thing, right?
So the company commander leads from their headquarters, while the sergeant leads on the field. Both are important, and both should be with the people.
Does he think that the quality of command has increased as the war has gone on? And if it has, what has been important in increasing that quality?
It has improved. I cannot compare it to the commanding before full-scale invasion, because I did not serve before 2022. But since the full-scale invasion began, commanding stuff has improved. How has it improved? High command is pretty much the same, but the middle chain of command is improved in quality. Sergeants, officers, they act in new ways. Plus, only effective ones remained. Time has passed and shown who is effective and who is not. And this quality difference can be felt.
Did you participate in the Kharkiv Counteroffensive?
Yes, from the very beginning.
I would like to ask him what it was like participating in that counteroffensive.
It was something. When counteroffensive began, we returned from the Seversk area. We have just returned, and in a couple of days, we were already in Balakleya. And after that, it was practically non-stop offensives, and that was hard. Barely any time to even take an hour to change clothing. But it was not all the same. Some towns and villages were easy to liberate, because the enemy escaped. In other places, it was rough. We had to hold them ourselves. Generally, our job is to do the storming. Afterward, the main forces arrive and fortify there, and we go storm further. But sometimes we had to hold places. Kupyansk, for example. For more than 5 days we have stayed there, unexpectedly. We were fighting with trophy weapons, because our equipment did not last there. So what we managed to take from the enemy we used. Maybe God was on our side, because luck sure was. A lot of taking chances, because you cannot predict everything. Many times it felt like this was our end, not going to survive this night, because of many factors being against us. But then boom, something happens that keeps us afloat. It was something. Thank you. It was very elevating. You are going forward, although it's hard, but you are pushing forward, and it's working. Where do you find strength? How does it work? You don't even think about it. You just think, oh, that's awesome. Moving forward. Forward where? There, to Kupyansk, to Kiev Sharifka. On our way there, We were so elevated, very elevated. Very high risks. Very hard on the body, but easy on the soul. It was amazing.
It was an extremely fast-paced counteroffensive. It kind of shocked the world how quickly it happened. It was like the Russians were in Kharkiv, and then they weren't in Kharkiv. Why was it so fast-paced? Why were the Russians so quickly pushed out of Kharkiv?
They did not expect such a quick offensive operation. We really had some trouble too, because we were used to planning operations. We were used to briefings and talking it through. No such thing here. Opportunity knocks. We are on it. With no plan, no scouting the territory. Breaking through was our scouting, and it worked. We did not let them stop. They were doing things by the book. So by the rules, they were supposed to fall back, and we were supposed to fortify there. But we did not fortify there. We ran forward instead. They are trying to fortify, but we're pushing them back, so they can't fortify. And then again and again, there were situations such as this. We are storming the village, 20 people or so, without heavy weapons. And a whole column of tanks runs away from us. 7 tanks, 3 armored cars. They did not even know how many of us were there. And we were pressing them non-stop. It was sheer audacity on our part, hard to even explain. Ukrainian armed forces did an immense job before us. They had broken the first line of defense. That was not our merit. So you can't say it was just us, the cool ones, running forward and taking villages. Everyone worked to achieve this. But our specific skill set worked here. Run forward, don't think much. So after our colleagues and friends broke through the first line of enemy defenses, buffoons like us came through. Spetsnaz regiment in Kraken. Guys who will not think too hard and just run forward. And it worked. They couldn't fortify anywhere properly or pull back. So the second line could not fortify too, and the third line was not prepared to fight at all. The third line is the rear. And then, out of nowhere, some guys with Brownings, machine guns, appear in their rear, shooting things left and right. On the other side, some scouting group pops up. They, Russians, did not even stop to ask how many of us were there. They were confused. Yes, but spontaneity by itself would not have worked without well-planned attacks prior. And those were done by UAF and SBU. Many people worked in this. The General Staff didn't even know, I think, where we were going to stop. They did have particular goals in mind, but we surpassed them because we saw what was happening with logistics and supply lines. They could not catch up with us, but as long as we were able to move forward, we did. And then we waited for them to catch up. No big deal. Now we know what their Russian food rations taste like. We managed, and we survived.
Did they have the discretion to make those types of calls on the ground to be like, that village doesn't look very defended, we're going to just go do that?
Yes, we had permission. It was not just running around on our own. We were only doing scouting, raids, and diversion on our own. But actually taking places was coordinated. Also, you said the word spontaneous a lot, but not everything was spontaneous. We did not have much time for proper planning, but there were orders and immediate reactions to them. And here is the key to our success. The Ukrainian General Staff reacted very fast and adapted to the ever-changing circumstances. The Russian command could not keep up. Russians needed to renegotiate everything. On our side, the decisions were made very swiftly. Change of plan, talking through, planning, and action were all performed within 4 to 5 hours. So that's not proper planning. But to say that we were moving forward haphazardly would not be correct.
When that counteroffensive started, did he ever think that they were going to reach Kupyansk? They got very, very far,
Yeah,
much farther than they got farther than Kupyansk.
Mhm.
Did he expect to get that far?
За Куп'янськ.
At first, we did not think we could, but when we entered Kupyansk, we worked in Balaklia, and we took nearby villages surrounding it. Izium was taken back without us. We did not participate in that. When we entered Kupyansk, we did not know at first, but then we saw how disoriented and disorganized they were. Then we began to believe in going far.
Why were the Russians so unprepared, does he think? Because most reporters have seemed to come to the conclusion that their lines were too thin and they didn't have a lot of experienced troops in that area. Would he agree with that assessment, or was it something different?
Not really. How to say this? They were prepared fine. Coordination was bad. The level of preparedness of the division stationed there was high enough. You could see that by the weapons we took from them, or found, by their equipment, by chevrons. They were prepared. Not all of them were, of course. There were mobilized infantry, engineers and such. But awful coordination of their actions was the culprit. Yes, yes. They could not swiftly respond to our actions. Their orders were contradictory. Nobody knew what to do with reserves. They were not pulled in time. They were not timely informed about what territories we took back. You could really see that. As we were moving forward, Russian subdivisions would ride straight into us by accident, without expecting to see us there. This happened many times. They had no clue.
Would you say that since then Russian command has improved in any way?
Well, you see, the beginning of the full-scale war showcased how greatly they underestimated the situation in Ukraine and the Ukrainian army.
Ситуація, яка є в Україні, з українською армією і так далі. З боку росіян.
Yes, Russians. They did not expect such resistance.
Такого спротиву.
Kharkiv's counteroffensives further demonstrated this underestimation.
Також Харківська операція. Вони також нас недооцінювали.
They did not take that seriously. They were thinking about continuing the offensives themselves. That's my opinion, but it explains their actions better. They were likely planning to pull back and then renew their offensives. That's why they were not building fortifications, so they were in offensive mode, not defensive. Attacking forces that were themselves preparing to attack is the easiest thing, because they are not on a defense. Much rougher to attack forces that are in defense mode. Very high losses that way. But this was not like that at all. They were stationed there temporarily to perform a breakthrough. Now they understand and don't underestimate us. We are in the third phase of war now. And you can see how different this current counteroffensive is. Completely different fortifications and lines of defense. Storming towns and villages can only be done methodically there. This is not the moment or time for Kharkiv's counteroffensive methods of pushing and pushing and pushing. Different circumstances to adapt to.
Тому що я знаю, що Діма хоче спитати. Багато людей кажуть про контрнаступлення, яке зараз. Як ви кажете, що воно не таке воно не таке швидке, воно не таке. І багато людей на Заході такі, це невдача, це якось не працює. Це дуже глупо, але я чую цього багато, тому що вони чекають саме ось те, що ви описали, тобто Харківське контрнаступлення, очі Херсон.
It seems they have forgotten how people in the West reacted to the first days of the war. They expected us to fall in 3 days, so we already have surprised them. But we can't surprise them every time, because Russians are also learning from their mistakes and evolving. They utilize new tactics. They use new weapons. They develop. Despite the sanctions, they produce weapons, drones, and so on. I am cautious about not repeating their mistakes of underestimating the enemy. And I warn the military people who I work with about this.
Щоб ми не повторили їхні помилки, знову ж таки недооцінюючи.
Because we already won the war in many people's heads, but we are far from winning. Yes, we are smacked in the teeth, but that also taught them how to fight us.
Підівчили його, як з нами боротися. Ми показали свої
We showed our methods that they did not expect. But now they expect these methods, and we can only come up with new tactics for so long.
Придумувати все нове і нове і нове.
Now they adapted to our methods of warfare.
Методів ведення війни, вони зараз
They learned our tactics and found countermeasures. That's why it is not that easy. It will be slow-paced.
Це журналісти, вони багато розповідають.
просто
Just put yourself in our shoes.
тобто ми
We are going forward, losing people, coming up with new tactics. But it's a failure because it's not going as fast as we expected it to go. You understand what this is doing to our minds.
What was it like when you guys reached Kupyansk and liberated it against all odds?
коли ми
Well, you see, when we just entered Kupyansk, it did not feel like liberating it because we needed to hold in there. But after holding the city for 5 days, I felt joy. I even have videos I recorded there, little celebrations videos of liberating Kupyansk, because we held it.
Ви можете нам це відео чи не?
If you want to, yeah.
Включити його в YouTube, відео буде прикольно.
Yes.
Просто треба врахувати, що ми були
We were so exhausted, and we did not have enough people to defend the areas we took.
Відповідно, для того, щоб навіть охороняти ті місця, які ми взяли, а ми зайшли там.
We were at the crossroads in Kupyansk.
Куп'янська. Ми там спали за добу по
We were sleeping for 2 hours per day maximum.
коли до нас там
There were situations when enemy armored vehicles barged in, so sleeping was not an option.
тобто там за
I have calculated.
тоді рахував, зараз вже не
I
пам'ятаю.
don't remember the exact amount of hours I slept,
Весь час перебування в
but I slept somewhere around 7 hours overall
По-моєму, чи 7 годин в загальному.
in 5 days.
Ну, відповідно,
So you are filled with joy. But you don't even know if you are happy because you took the city or because you have survived. Maybe you are happy to shower finally or sleep properly.
десь там нормально виспишся. Ну, взагалі,
Overall,
це було
it
піднесення.
was elevation.
Як я вже казав,
This
взагалі,
entire
ці
operation was
операції це було
elevating.
піднесення.
It's elevating to be on the offensives and see that your struggle brings
І коли
results.
ти бачиш, що все-таки от ця от твоя боротьба приносить якісь результати, ну, звичайно,
This gives you wings,
люба перемога, як люба
like any victory does.
просто
Truly
піднесення
unbelievably uplifting.
було таке неймовірне.
I did want to ask you about that. What was the sleep schedule like during the counteroffensive?
Ну, ми
We did find moments to sleep,
навіть,
but the schedule depended on the situation.
ну, все залежало від ситуації.
We established several observation posts to control the crossroads,
З озброєнням, щоб перекрити перехрестя, але там була
but the situation was that there were only 17 people on that crossroad, and we have 4 roads crossing from 4 directions. So you stay there in vigilance for 4 to 5 hours, then you sleep for 30 minutes, then you go to reserve. You don't guard the block post itself now, but you provide cover from a distance, and you can react quickly from a distance to assist with any of the 4 directions. So it depends on the environment. In that area, we took turns. One night we thought we could get some sleep, and then an armored vehicle barged in. Thankfully, they had no idea what they were getting themselves into. Like I told you before, about their disorientation. They were driving as if it was towards their block post. That saved us, because we did not even have heavy weapons to break through it. We did not manage to break through it, but we shot at it with small arms. And then the ammunition this vehicle was transporting exploded. The driver panicked, and they went off the road and crashed. And then we got them. Stories like that. But when it comes to sleeping, it depends on the situation.
I wanted to ask if you at all took part in the liberation of Izium.
No, we weren't in Izium.
Did he hear about, I assume he heard about what was uncovered there.
Я чув, і це
I heard about
це
it.
тільки те, що
And that's only what we discovered so
ми
far.
знаємо на сьогодні. Я думаю, що це буде
There will be more of that.
тому що там я не кажу, що всі
I'm not saying all Russians are like that.
бачите,
I purposely tried to call them Russians all the time, although that's not we call them amongst ourselves.
але
But
в
they,
них таке
that's
мислення,
their
така
mentality,
ідеологія, і
their ideology.
в них це не вважається, навіть
It's
їхнім
not
побутом
considered
це не
something
вважається
out of
чимось
order
таким
for them.
надзвичайним. Тому
Very
звичайно,
upsetting,
жаль, це
of
надає
course.
більше
It
люті,
fills us with more rage,
але тут
but we should not let this
головне,
rage
щоб вона не
demotivate
демотивувала,
us.
а навпаки,
Instead, it should do the opposite, fill us with confidence and motivate us to fight. It's a tragedy,
Ми її будемо оплакувати
and we will mourn it for a long time.
ще довго, але от я
Yet I
навіть
tell
своїм
this to my
хлопцям говорю,
boys,
що їх також вони читають
because when they
новини,
see
їх
such
також
news,
це мотивує,
they feel demoralized
злому
and despairing, because you want to do everything you can to protect
хочуть зробити
everyone.
все, щоб захистити всіх.
And that's why we only have volunteers here, not a single mobilized individual here. People came here willingly. And of course, it demoralizes, feels like a failure. Why do we have to put up with this? So I say to my boys, we will mourn after victory. But right now, this should fill you with rage and surety, excise your doubts.
Якісь там ще, можливо, вагання і так далі.
That's the goal.
Ваша ціль, ми це спрямовуємо. Так само,
Just
як
like
страх, ми
fear,
маємо
you need to channel
спрямувати
rage into something productive.
лють і
There will be time for crying later.
плакати. Ну, прийде час, і ми
I've got 4 more questions. I want to thank him for
Here, look at that. That's the missile that exploded in that armored vehicle. And they thought that was someone hitting them. And they thought it was an enemy attack that got them. It was in the night. They panicked.
Тому
So
от
they
вони
kind of like
звернули.
panicked. They thought that they were,
Так.
and this is what the one exploded.
І вони от
So they crashed and got stuck
вони не могли вже звідси виїхати. там
between the
між
stone
кам'яним
walls.
забором
So they
і
kind of
це.
like crashed and couldn't get out of there. Yeah.
Ну і там вийшли з
And they
машини,
left the
відповідно, вже
vehicle,
коли
and
вони
we
були
took them
пішки,
out.
то ми їх зачистили і
And they went out.
We took two as POWs.
взяли в полон, один
One died.
загинув.
So I only have 4 more questions, and then I'm done. I appreciate the amount.
I just wanted to show the video.
Показати це
Так,
відео,
якщо можна, я б
It's very
це...
thorough.
просто
О,
чи
це ви
воно
з
вам
Куп'янська?
підійде, та
Yes.
це вже ми виходимо.
Гроші ми взяли.
Ну, там
There is a little swearing in there, sorry.
Це добре. Для Ютуба це нормально.
це може.
That's us in the city centre,
Так, я там була.
Туги руського міра.
sweaty and exhausted.
Yeah, if you send it to me, I'll include it.
Yeah, to me, I will send you that.
Yeah.
Because it's really, ця робота дуже добра для аудиторії, коли ми про щось розповідаємо, і вони ще бачать, як це виглядало.
Ну, в мене тут
I have a lot of stuff here.
дуже багато.
Ну,
Мене-
якщо що ви маєте, що ви думаєте, що добре показати, коли ви...
What's interesting to you?
То, про що ми розмовляли, оцей бронетранспортер і Kupyansk відео добре. Якщо там WhatsApp чи щось ваше, я можу...
Та, ні, ну, в мене
Okay,
є-
I did not tell you, but I have 4 hours of footage of our operations, how we move forward. But that's,
Можемо показати,
Так,
але такі маленькі...
Ні, я маю на увазі, що це
I meant that it's not allowed.
там, ну,
Так, ні, тільки те, що ви вважаєте, можна показати.
взагалі ми
Overall, after we record this interview, I need to see it and get permission before you post it. We will show it to you. It's not even for me, I need to show it to my high-ups. So please send it to me in some form that I could show to my
Я
command.
можу просто його показати ще своєму начальству, ну тоді так.
Тоді ваш контакт я візьму і покажу вам,
Так,
як
так,
воно
так,
виглядає,
звичайно.
покажете, кому хочете, і тоді
Окей.
тільки ми опублікуємо, якщо ви скажете, що добре. Так.
Ну,
I will show it to whoever I must show it to. I don't think there will be issues, it's just precautions. I did not go into any specific details.
без деталей.
So I only have 4 more questions and I'm done. The next question is about Izium. When those crimes are revealed, I'll be blunt about it. Is it hard not to hate the Russians amongst many of the people you command?
Як це сказати?
How to say this in Ukrainian? We are not resisting the urge to hate.
Скажімо так,
It's not a destructive type of hate.
Сказати, як важко
How hard it is
стримати,
to
щоб
resist hating
ненавидіти,
Russians.
я не
I
знаю.
don't know. You need to be trying to resist it in the first place to know if that's hard or not. And nobody is trying.
Просто ця
It is not a destructive
ненависть,
type
вона
of
є
hate.
деструктивною, вона не поширюється
It does
там
not
на
overwhelmingly encompass everything.
все ми чітко
We
розуміємо.
know our enemy well.
ворога.
We understand clearly how guilty the Russian army is.
Перед нами завинила російська армія.
We understand what kind of society the Russian army is a product of. Aside from that, hate towards the enemy is natural, as is rage. It helps us, because we need to understand what we are fighting for, and with whom.
Повинні розуміти, з ким ми воюємо.
I would not even say I hate all Russians,
Прям всіх росіян ненавиджу, чи Росію,
or that I hate Russia as a country. I don't care about it at all.
взагалі. Але я
I hear debate about these things in society, especially from people with very liberal beliefs.
ліберальні якісь погляди проявляються.
But I suggest pondering about who raised that Russian soldier, what type of society, what family, what belief system, what type of person would choose and tolerate this state of affairs in society.
Такий стан речей в суспільстві.
Nobody is entirely blameless there. Nobody.
Принаймні ми, українці,
At least we, Ukrainians, see it that way. If we don't like it, the state, we try to change it peacefully. If the peaceful way does not work, we protest and make ourselves heard. When we see that things got too far, we fight. We fight for ideals and beliefs within the country itself, not only with outside aggressors. So the environment there created these people who commit war crimes in mass.
можливість, що є такі люди, які чинять.
And I am talking in mass, not about singular cases, because singular cases can be attributed to just criminal individuals who exist everywhere. But these are crimes committed on a mass scale. They became part of the national idea, a behavior pattern, and their society supports it in one way or the other, either by silence and complacency, or by acceptance and endorsement. So I am sorry, but how else can we feel about them? For those who commit the crimes, hate. For those who allow it, contempt and incomprehension at the very least.
I've been told that the main thing producing injuries for many soldiers is artillery and shelling, that's the main problem that soldiers are running into. What were some common injuries for Ukrainian soldiers?
Artillery. We did not have a single gunshot wound, only artillery. Here.
То саме.
Did you guys encounter any IEDs, mines, MON-50s, the butterfly mines, stuff like that in the field?
Our subdivision in particular has not encountered mines much, but this time around it will be a common problem. That's what they use for the defense lines. There will be a lot of mines. We did not encounter some before, especially while scouting missions. We crossed mined territories. But it was not a massive issue. Now it's a number one problem, because as I understand, it will take a lot of time to clean that up. Large swaths of territory are mined by both our side and theirs.
Які заміновані і нашою стороною, і їхньою, як переходила територія, і ніхто
And both sides don't even have minefield maps.
карти мінних полів, тому що
It's chaotic.
насправді
Honestly, mines are my biggest fear.
це якраз міна.
For some reason,
Так, не артилерія,
not artillery, not bullets.
хоча б якось може.
Those I can deal with.
Там був і танки,
Tanks and artillery shot at me, but it was not as terrifying as being afraid to take a wrong step,
боїшся таки, тому що
because there is no way to predict where it will be.
можеш передбачити, де і як воно
Так і
буде.
дуже важкі поранення від мін також.
Навіть не важкість.
It's not even about the injuries, but lack of control. It's purely luck-based if you will step on it or not.
There was a recent report in the New York Times that only 15% of the demining equipment that Ukraine has requested from the international community has been delivered. Do you think that the international community needs to be more on top of this, send more demining equipment?
Тут розумієте, сама
Well, this depends.
залежить, що
What is the goal of our international partners? Because they don't owe us anything.
так, але
But we need it. I will say something that may sound wild for civilians to hear, but we are running out of sappers. Not even the equipment, but the sappers themselves. People lose their arms and legs because they have to demine.
От прям лізуть, тому що треба це робити.
They take huge risks.
І нас просто
Sappers are not the kind of specialists you can train in 1 week.
за тиждень, розумієте?
It's wild to say, but we are running out of sappers. But that's the reality.
Так що, так,
Yes, we do need demining equipment because it will save lives.
збереже і життя, і
Does he believe that the cluster munitions that the United States is sending could add to this problem, or does he believe it's too much of a strategic necessity?
вони це просто
It's just a specific type of ammunition. It is a necessary measure up until the production of other ammunition types is improved, so we can get enough of those. They just had cluster munitions in stock already, but honestly, they do not make that big of a difference in the area affected compared to other munitions. We already received more serious weapons from our Western allies prior. People talk about the fear of provoking Russia with these, and it's absurd.
щоб не розізлити, щоб
Not to anger Putin or something. And that's... He goes off and moves nuclear weapons to Belarus, and nobody gets angry. But here, cluster munitions, Putin will be angry. That's laughable, although it's not a laughing matter.
не знаю, він підірвав.
He exploded the dam, and they are contemplating who could have possibly done this. I'm sure it was them, Russians, because all facts point to that. However, if we allow that it was not a direct action, it is still the result of Russia's aggression. Nobody is angry about it, apparently. But we have to be afraid to anger Putin. He is plenty angry already. He already got his ass handed to him here. How much angrier can he possibly get?
What makes a good stormtrooper?
Courage and stupidity. A bit of a joke. A good stormtrooper needs to have fast reflexes and be quick-witted.
Дуже швидку реакцію і швидко думати, тому що
Acting without thinking first will not cut it.
не вийдеш. Та хороший штурмовик так само.
A good stormtrooper is the same as a good infantry person, or artillery one, or a good tank operator. He needs to love his work, and needs to spend a lot of time improving his creed,
В цьому напрямку
to
вчити
train and work hard.
і тяжко працювати.
Do you ever see people that want to be stormtroopers and you see certain qualities they have and you think that person isn't good for the job?
It happens often,
А які ці якості?
важко.
hard to explain.
Смілості і глупості.
Так, тут важко
Hard to say.
переважно основною,
The main thing is they should not get paralyzed by fear,
який сковує,
but it is hard to notice this quality in a person from the get-go.
якщо
That even without the testing by battle trials, these qualities are bad for stormtroopers. Tardiness, poor physical fitness, and disabilities.
є якісь вади, тут
It's not about intolerance.
просто
These are just qualities incompatible with being a stormtrooper.
штурмовикам.
Stormtroopers always deal with adrenaline highs.
Тобто, якщо є якісь хвороби,
So, as a stormtrooper, you cannot have diseases not allowing you to endure adrenaline spikes, like diabetes. We had a situation like this recently. A good person and a promising stormtrooper that had diabetes.
при стресах
Some stress and blood sugar levels dropped very low.
дуже сильно.
In short, these would be physical attributes that don't qualify. As to psychological attributes, not being able to master fear and reacting to it by freezing up. As we say, scared stiff or faint-hearted. You get scared into a stupor, and that's it. In trenches, you can allow yourself that.
Стресостойкість має бути дуже...
Розумієте, в чому
So here is the thing. When your job is holding a position, you can jump in a trench and be stiff with fear for there as long as you like. But as a stormtrooper, you must continue onward while being shot at. You can't be paralyzed by fear, because everything depends on your actions, covering others, moving to another spot. Everyone gets scared, all of us feel fear. It's not about never being scared, it's about the ability to overcome fear. If you can overcome your fear, being terrified with your eyes bugging out, but continue to do your job regardless, you are a stormtrooper then.
Last question.
last question.
So, we recently got a report from the Ukrainian government that the Russians have built up 100,000 soldiers in the Luhansk Oblast in an attempt to push in this direction, along with 900 tanks. Do you believe that Kraken and the others defending this area are ready for that Russian attack? It's the one area the Russians are still attacking.
Так, звичайно.
Yes, of course. We are much better prepared now than in February 2022.
Тому 22-го року. Ну, от,
How ready are we?
скажемо, наскільки
The situation will
покаже
show.
ситуація, коли
We cannot be 100% prepared because we don't know what to expect exactly.
Тобто, якщо
If they launch a new attack, we have several lines of
є
defense.
вже і друга, і третя лінія, нема
This will not be a surprise as well. We are well prepared for pretty much everything.
Ну, слабо були готові, але готові.
That's all the questions I have. If there's any message you would want to send to anyone who watches this, any American or anyone around the world, now would be the time to do that.
I'm thinking about the message now. I was not ready for the interview, honestly.
Супер були готові. Це найкраще інтерв'ю, яке ми робили.
I was expressing my thoughts.
10 із 10. Якщо у вас є якийсь меседж, може, американцям чи західним аудиторії, щось від себе передати їм, щось.
Believe in us, and everything will be cool.
Дякую вам дуже, це було.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you for watching this Ukraine Uncensored interview. I hope this first-hand testimony of the war in Ukraine helped you better understand those who are caught in the violent throes of history. We have a bunch of other videos interviewing those affected by the war on the ground in Ukraine that you can check out on my channel. If you want to help fund my work so I can do more interviews like this in the future, please support me at my Dylan Burns TV Patreon page. I have a second YouTube channel called Dylan Burns Live, where you can see my videos from my live stream, which you can view on my Twitch or on my website, dylanburns.tv, every weekday from 6 p.m. EST to midnight. And if you want my hot takes or photos from my time in Ukraine, check out my socials, including at DylanBurns1776 on Twitter and Dylan Burns TV on Instagram. All links, including a community Discord, are in the description below. See you guys next time.